Hey, God bless you, everybody. I'm not going to be before you too long. I just want to have uh, well, I don't know if I'm going to be before you too long. We'll see. So, I just want to talk to you about there's a phrase that we like to say, or I've said it. I don't know about you, but I've heard it before. Other people have said it. Um, where people will say, well, you know what, I'm afraid, I'm afraid to like speak in public, or I'm afraid to, launch out and try a new business or whatever. And a lot of times I'll say, you know what, you just go ahead and just do it afraid. You know what I mean? Just do it afraid. And, you know, to a certain extent, that is a good advice. But I'm talking about things like on a repetitive nature. There's a certain number of people who are experiencing, like on a daily basis, a consistent, sustained attack on just being in fear. So many people now speak about, panic attacks. And a lot of times I'll talk to people and they'll tell me, I had a panic attack. And I'm like, okay, well, what happened? Whatever. And they'll just say, I don't know. It just happened. And it just come out of the blue. And, I just had a panic attack, you know. Um, there's all day long I hear about people and anxiety. They talk about their anxiety. And so there is a certain number of people who are listening to me for almost every day. They're getting attacked in terms of the fear of people, meaning, when you fear people, like they just like, well, what are they going to say about me? What are they going to think? And you're thinking about so deeply about what other people might think about you, or maybe someone is just consistently, or it's a group of people, like a bully, you know, just, and we're all adults now, but it doesn't mean that you're not consistently being bullied, maybe on your job, maybe it's like family members or whatever the situation is. It's consistent, a consistent, concerted attack. And it's not just those people, it is the enemy, riling these people up to keep you bound in fear and anxiety. And it is causing you to withdraw into yourself. And so a lot of times we think about, oh, well, this person is so withdrawn, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But there's a lot of us that are listening where God is saying you are the withdrawn one. You don't realize it because you might, put on a good face, you wear the mask, you say hi to people, and you smile and you giggle and all this good stuff. But deep down inside, God is saying you're not being who He made you to be. You're not being you to the full. And God is saying you have withdrawn. You have limited yourself because of the fear of man, because you're afraid of what they might say, or you're afraid that you may not get the approval because who you are may not be good enough for them or for whoever. And you're afraid of being rejected. And so God is saying, and also what's coming to mind is that a lot of your illnesses that you're experiencing, I feel the Holy Spirit, a lot of the illnesses that you are experiencing all stem from the stress of this fear, this anxiety, this limiting of who you are, and the concerted attack of intimidation. You feel intimidated. So what happens when you feel intimidated? You kind of, withdraw and curl up into a ball, like not physically speaking, but mentally speaking. You withdraw. You don't say the things, the ideas, or the great insight that you might have. You don't say it. You don't come forth. or you don't produce, or whatever it is, because you fear that you're going to be rejected, because you're intimidated by the circumstances. And it's this constant fear that's wreaking havoc on your body. It's this constant fear. And it's mentally and physically draining. And God is saying that this is the time. And I want to say, I don't want to be like people and just try to like come up with some type of gimmick. But it's the year 2023. It's the year 2023. And God has given, I'm not just making this stuff up, but God has given me this 23, meaning 23 in me, 23 identity markers, meaning your DNA chromosome. 23 is the year to be me, meaning it's the year to be you. Be who God created you to be. And so God is doing something in his people where he's calling his people forth. And I'm not talking about a group of people. I'm talking about the real you inside of you. He's calling that person forth to come forth to be boldly who they are, who he created you to be. But because the enemy doesn't want you to come forth, it is ramped up now. The intimidation attacks are ramped up to get you to withdraw into yourself and to not become or be who God has called you to be. And so the fiery trial is ramped up because the enemy doesn't want you to come out. But God is saying that if you stay in there, if you stay in that fire, that you're going to come forth, and you're going to be who he called you to be, and you're going and be delivered on top of that. So some of you have been dealing with this intimidation since you were a little kid, since you were back in grade school. When I was growing up, there wasn't no such thing as a bully. They didn't call it no bully. It was just you dealt with the same crap every single day. Every single day, day in and day out, you go to school and you deal with the same crap. There wasn't nobody you could go to, nobody you could talk to. You either fought your way out, or if you were a quiet person like me, you just sat there and you took it. And so from that point forward, if you dealt with certain situations, whether at school, whether at your home, whether wherever, you dealt with a certain level of trauma, there's a certain level of psychologically speaking, coping mechanisms that you do to protect yourself. You withdraw. Okay, well, mentally, I'm not really going to be here anyway to even deal with this trauma. And so when you do that and you don't get the deliverance and the proper healing that you need when you become an adult, you revert back to those same coping mechanisms. But those coping mechanisms, which in a way are blessings from God to help you to be able to deal with certain situations. But those coping mechanisms, when you become an adult and when you're supposed to produce and be who God called you to be, they bind you from being you to the full, from being you all the way to what God called you to be. You don't want to leave this earth, go to your grave, not doing what God purposed for you to do. And so God wants you to know that for those of you that have been crying out for deliverance, crying because you don't like how it feels, and you can feel it in your body, and you know what it's doing to you, it's destroying you, and you love the Lord, and you have been crying out for God, deliver me. God, I want to be bold for you. God, help me to not worry about what people think or say about me. Who cares? Help me to be like that, God. God is going to do it, but it's not going to be the zap that most people would love. Like, I would just love God to just zap me, you know what I mean? Like, I would just love him to just, but God knows best. And there has been certain things that God has delivered me from, and it's been literally a zap. But this thing right here, God could do whatever he wants. Everybody's different. Everybody's relationship with the Lord is different. But there's going to be some of you where God is going to have to allow you to go through a trial that the enemy is already throwing those darts out there anyway. And it's been, and the fire has been turned up. And God is allowing it because he knows at the end of the trial that you're going to be delivered, that you're going to face your fear, and that once you face it, the enemy is not going to have nothing more on you. And one of the things that you can do, I used to have an apostle, and in my heart, he's still my apostle. And he would be like, I tell on myself before they can, before the enemy can come and be like, oh yeah, this, and this. And you know what? Some of you are just going to have to go and face it and tell on yourself and be like, you know what the enemy is saying is true. And this, or whatever. Whatever it is that God is leading you to do to face this fear, once you face it, you might be shaking in your boots when you do it. But once you face it, you're going to come out on the other side and you're going to have so much strength. And you're no longer going to have the fear of man anymore. You're no longer going to have that. God is going to restore your soul. And one of the things that God had showed me was the story of Peter, where Peter was like, he's like, Jesus, I'm going to ride or die for you. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, ain't nobody going to come get you. And Jesus was like, look, before the rooster crow 3 times, before the rooster crow, you going to deny me 3 times. And Peter went on. Y'all know the story. He denied Jesus, and then the rooster cried. And Peter must have felt so low at that point, because he was like, man, I done disappointed Jesus. I denied him. Jesus done told me I was going to do that. But also Jesus had said, I think during that same chapter, Jesus had said, Peter, Satan has requested to sift you like wheat. And Jesus didn't say, you know what, and I rebuked him. No, Jesus said, all right, but after you get sifted, I prayed for you. Like, what you mean after I get sifted? It's like, after all that, I have prayed that your faith will not fail and that you will go and strengthen your brethren after you go through the trial. And God is saying it's going to be the same way for you. You're going to go through something. You're going to come out bigger and bolder on the other side of this. And you're going to go and tell this testimony and strengthen others who are suffering from this spirit of intimidation, from this fear. And also with that story with Peter, if you follow the whole story out, you read more chapters over, you'll see that Peter denied Jesus 3 times, but Jesus, after the resurrection, visited disciples and restored Peter 3 times, because he asked Peter, do you love me? 3 times. And that story there's a lot to it, but one of the aspects that you could take from Jesus asking Peter 3 times, do you love me, is because Peter denied him 3 times. Jesus had to restore him 3 times. And so some of you there's a connection here, stay with me. Some of you have gone through some things in your childhood that have never been dealt with. Now, I'm not saying Peter was a child when it happened, but Peter went through that denial And Jesus had to come and bring healing for that denial. And so it's like a one-for-one basis. So like, okay, you denied once, I'm going to restore you once. You denied twice, I'm going to restore you twice. So there's things in our lives that we have gone through in our past that God is going to restore, mentally, spiritually speaking. So if you went through some trauma in your past, God knows exactly what needs to happen in order for you to get delivered. So he knows the exact right medicine to mete out that's the perfect healing for whatever went on with you. And so it makes me think of that scripture. Don't think it's strange, because you're gonna be like, but God, I love you and I worship you and we have a relationship. Why would you allow one of the worst times in my life to resurface? Now, I'm saying like, and some of you, it just may be like the mental attacks of what happened. And it's just like, it's almost like the darts that the enemy is throwing at your mind. And it's just like, well, God, I love you and this, that, and I'm not, I don't have no open sin or anything that I know, no open doors or whatever. Why are you allowing this attack to happen? You may not be doing it, but you're allowing it. And God is saying Romans 8, I forget the whole thing. I forget exactly what verse, but God is saying Romans 8 that all things work for the good of them that love the Lord. And so this thing is, whatever it is going to work out for your good. It's going to work out for your good. Just trust and believe when you're going through it that when you come out, you're going to be bolder. You're going to be stronger. Even the world tells you that whatever doesn't kill you make you stronger. You know what I mean? So, and that's definitely true for someone as for a believer. That's definitely true for a believer. So you might be going through some things even now as I'm talking, and God is using this as confirmation for you, is using it as encouragement for you to say that he has not left you. He has not abandoned you. And when you get through it, you're going to strengthen your brethren. And that's what I'm doing right now. So, enemy, you're stupid, because now I'm even more powerful in the Lord. Enemy, you stupid. Why you do that? Because I wasn't going to leave the Lord, and I wasn't going to come out of his will. Did the thought cross my mind? I ain't going to lie, it did. But I knew I wasn't going to move. I knew I wasn't going to move out of what he wanted me to do. I was going to face whatever it was. God ain't tell me to move, so I can't be moved. I'm not moving. I'm going to stand flat-footed and deal with the blows until... And one of the things I want to tell you guys is that the attack was so bad that, it was multiple people. And it's just like, you can't keep people you can't make people be quiet. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, they're not talking to you. It's like indirect. And you pick up little things, every little whisper. And then are they talking about me? And just becoming almost to the point where you're like paranoid. And then I was like, nah, they literally are talking about me. I'm like, I'm not paranoid. And it got to the point where it was just like, I don't even want to go to work. I don't even want to go to work. But I knew that I can't change these people. I can't change what they're saying. And the fear of me, like, oh my God, every time I felt like they were talking about me, it was like a stab in my heart. And I could feel my The medical issue that I have, I could feel it literally getting worse. And so I said, God, I can't stop. There's nothing I can do. I prayed all types, make the tongue cleave to the roof of their mouth, all this, all this stuff. Let the spirit of conviction come upon them. Blah, blah, blah. And I would pray and I would, ask God. But at the end of the day, I knew there was nothing that could stop people's tongues from wagging. And the only thing that I could change was me and how I dealt with it. And one day, I had a dream, and I saw myself putting on these pants. And I said, well, at first I ain't have no pants. Y'all know y'all had those dreams where you go somewhere and you naked, half naked, and you're like, oh no, I'm here, I'm naked. That when you have a dream when you don't have like your tops missing or your bottoms are missing, that means that you feel insecure. So the dream started out, I didn't have no bottoms on, and I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? And then all of a sudden these pants appeared, and the pants were from Goodwill. I said, oh, I got these pants from Goodwill. Let me put them on before I go into the building. And I put them on. When I put them on, I felt like I was strong. And what God was saying from that dream was that because of the goodwill that you bring about, meaning you are in God's goodwill, and you go about, like the enemy go about seeking whom he may destroy, you go about seeking who you may bring into the kingdom. And God knows that, and he sees, it's not about, he sees your works, he sees what you do, and he's clothed you in strength. There's going to come a time period where God is going to say, all right, that's enough. That's enough. And he's going to clothe you in strength. And I woke up that next morning, and I walked into my job like I owned the job. The strength, the peace that goes beyond all human understanding. And I said, you know what? If the people talking about me, I'm going to be like, yes, and like I was ready. And don't you know, nobody said nothing. No one said anything. And I was like, you know how you get, some of y'all people that are more outgoing that might be like, I wish somebody would. That's how I was. I was like, I wish somebody would say something. I was ready. Like, I wasn't going to tear them apart, but I was ready. And so it was so freeing. I felt so good. I hadn't felt that good in my spirit in such a long time. And I just thank God. And so that's what I want you guys to know. God is going to, you can't change everybody else, but you can change you and how you deal with stuff. And so the other thing that I want to say, if it's people that's bullying and intimidating, because the enemy will use people. It's not the actual people themselves. It's Satan using those people. So you have to forgive them. Just like Jesus, forgive them, Lord, for they know not what they do. And it was literal, you know how we hear, and it's almost cliche now, don't touch not my anointed, do my prophets no harm. You know how you hear that? You hear that so often that you're like, oh, people are just saying that so that they don't get, so that you don't talk about them, or, you don't try to do anything against them, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes that is the truth. But God knows who's living a righteous life, and God knows who isn't. And so that statement is true. I would literally see people talk about me 2 minutes later. Oh, I gotta go home. Oh, something bad done happen. I ain't laughing, because God said, don't laugh at people or he gonna stop, don't laugh at people that's having like something bad happen to them. But I would literally, at one person within 15 minutes, caught them talking about me. Within 15 minutes, they were, oh, I gotta go home, tears in their eyes because something had happened at the house. I'm telling you, don't let the enemy, like if you listen to this, don't let the enemy use you like that. Don't let the enemy use you like that, because I'm telling you, God, he cannot take it when someone is a man or woman of God, they love the Lord, and all they trying to do is just love on people, and you treat them bad. God, he can't stand that. He cannot stand it. And I'm telling you, I've seen it. Almost every person. And sometimes you don't get to see it. Not that you're like, yeah, hee hee ha ha, that's what you get. But sometimes you don't get to see it. And so trust and believe, you cannot do the men and women of God any kind of way that you want to do them and think that you're going to get away with it. Now, these people may not put two and two together. They may not. And also, men and women of God, you need to talk to your kids too, because a lot of kids think, oh, well, I'm just a kid, what could happen to me? Kids, there's a certain point when you're at the age of reason, where you know better. And these kids coming out wickeder and wiser. They coming out like, yeah, what's up? Like they so, so you got to talk to your kids. Don't just let them be like, nah, you know, you got to learn how to respect, you know what I mean? Somebody doing you well, and you going to treat them all types of crazy ways? No, you know, even the world will tell you what goes around comes around, or they'll call it karma or whatever. So, yeah, so I said a lot, and I know I was before you long. But I thank you guys for listening, and until we meet again, like, share, subscribe. Bye.